In one case, the FBI helped bring justice multiple former business owners who orchestrated a $205 million Medicare fraud scheme on the American people. And those business owners filed nearly 1 million false claims for services that they never provided any patients, literally stealing from American taxpayers and preying on vulnerable people who were suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia and substance abuse. But thanks to the FBI, those crooks were held accountable. So I just wanted to ask you today if you would pass along my gratitude to those FBI agents for their tireless work bringing those criminals to justice.
I will, ma'am. The fraud work is often overlooked, and I greatly appreciate that.
And very important. But I do have to say, unfortunately, President Trump, the guy who says he's going after fraud, granted this man Lawrence Duran clemency last June. He was set free and let off the hook for the $87 million he owed in restitution. And Trump granted clemency to Duran's business partner last February, cutting well short her 35-year prison term. He literally undid the important justice work the FBI served and let fraudsters off the hook, and I find that deeply disturbing. With that, I want to say, I want to take a moment to reiterate the important role of DOJ law enforcement in keeping all of us safe. Those agents and deputy marshals are absolutely critical to making sure public safety and solving crime. But I worry that instead of pursuing these child abusers or terrorists or drug traffickers or other criminals, you have our agents spending time carrying out Stephen Miller's mass deportation agenda and harassing families and children. I want to ask you, Director Patel, how many FBI agents have been reassigned to work on immigration enforcement?
No one at the FBI has been reassigned to work solely on immigration, ma'am.
Well, I would differ with you because according to the Cato Institute, more than 2,000 FBI agents were reassigned to work on immigration enforcement in 2025. By the way, it's not just the FBI. More than 2,000 agents from the DEA, more than 600 from the Marshal Service, and more than 1,000 ATF agents are spending their time on immigration enforcement. That has really pulled critical, highly trained assets off of work to keep our communities safe from drugs and guns and other threats, and I find that deeply disturbing. Now, Director Patel, I want to ask you about a number of extremely troubling stories recently about your leadership and temperament and what's happened to the FBI with you at the top. And in response to all the concerns about your leadership, instead of righting the ship, you've taken to polygraphing your employees to scare them and attempt to rat out leakers. There are reports that you're using FBI resources to investigate journalists for reporting what's going on, and that is absolutely not what this committee intended when we funded the Bureau. So can you commit to this committee today that no agent hours have been pulled from other work like counterterrorism or violent crime investigations to work on matters related to negative press about you or your personal lawsuit?
Senator, I greatly appreciate the question, and I can tell you unequivocally, this FBI is targeting and investigating no journalists. This FBI is targeting no journalists. The Obama and Biden administrations targeted dozens of journalists, sent out 1,200 interviews.
I didn't ask you about the Biden administration. I asked if you can commit to this committee that no agent hours have been pulled from other work.
We have not done so.
Okay, well, there are reports that are using FBI resources to investigate journalists. You are saying to this committee today that that is not true.
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay, well, let me just say, Director Patel, we need a serious budget, but we also need serious leadership. And I will say this, there's one clear priority in Trump's overall budget, and it isn't law and order, it is war. Because while Trump is proposing cuts to programs that really do keep people safe, he wants to increase war spending by $500 billion. And I don't need to tell anyone here we are not going to bomb our way to safer communities. So I intend to help rip that budget up and write bills that keep families safe. But beyond that budget, we need serious leadership at the FBI that the American people can trust. And I am deeply concerned about the reports that your leadership has not been serious. We need somebody at this agency who's focused on solving criminal cases, not passing out branded bourbon or jetting around the globe. Your job is to be reachable. And I know Senator Van Hollen asked you about this, but I got to say, if you want to pass out liquor or pop bottles in a locker room, stick to podcasting. Leave law and order to people who really do care about justice and appearances. That is really critical. And it's what I am really deeply concerned about, and so are many people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can I respond? This is what real leadership looks like at the FBI. Every one of you was given it. This is what's happened under my tenure at the FBI and the Trump administration. 20-point drop in the homicide rate, 45,000 violent offenders arrested last year, twice as many as 2024, 2,450 criminal gangs disrupted. That's a 322% increase from 2024. 6,900 child victims have been located since I've been in the seat. That's a 144% increase. 2,900 child predators and human traffickers arrested. That's a 70% increase. And we've arrested 8 of the top 10 most wanted fugitives in the world in 14 months. That's twice as many in the 4 years combined. That is what the men and women of the FBI are doing, well-resourced. Everyone should take a look at this. If people want to continue the baseless, fraudulent, false personal attacks at me, that's great. Keep the target on me, as I've always said, but the mission has never been better.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just respond to
Senator Murray.
I appreciate the work of our FBI agents, but leadership, serious leadership, is a concern. And we are seeing the pictures of passing out branded bourbon and what happened at the Olympics and jetting around the globe and all the rest of it. And that, I will say again, Mr. Chairman, is of deep concern to me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator.
Joining me now, MS Now's Ken Delanian, who broke this story, and former FBI Executive Assistant Director Jacqueline McGuire. Ken, take us inside your new reporting, both about what's been happening with the most wanted list, but also what you're learning when it comes to something called double counting arrests.
Sure, Chris. Well, in terms of the most wanted list, Kash Patel has repeatedly boasted that his administration, his FBI, has had a better rate of catching those fugitives than any previous recent administration, particularly the Biden administration. But when we looked at it, what we realized, and sources inside the FBI are telling us, is that the FBI appears to be nominating fugitives to that list when they know they're about to be captured. So of the 6 fugitives captured during Kash Patel's tenure as FBI director, he keeps saying 8, but actually only 6 were captured while he was the FBI director. 4 of them were nominated within a month of their capture, and 2 were nominated to the list within 24 hours. And in one case, one fugitive was captured in Mexico an hour and 10 minutes after being placed on the list in an operation that obviously took weeks to plan. And so what sources inside are saying is this is obvious gaming of the system. It's great that these fugitives are being captured, but the idea that you're celebrating some prowess about finding these people, that's overblown. And then in terms of the arrest, Kash
Well,
Patel
I mean, can I stop you there? But is it even clear that in I don't want to call it a normal FBI, but in typical circumstances, all of them would have actually been on the FBI's most wanted list?
Well, in fairness, that's a very subjective list. I've done some reporting on it. It's been around for decades, and they do move people around. It's there's no specific criteria. Osama bin Laden was on it for years, and he wasn't caught. And then other people they put on and are caught right away. Other people you've never heard of. But so it's a fair question, though. It's certainly more movement than we've ever seen before under Kash Patel's FBI. And then in terms of the arrest stat that you mentioned, Kash Patel said yesterday that the FBI in 2025 had doubled the number of violent crime arrests than it had done in 2024 in the Biden administration. But what he didn't say was that he changed the policy about how those arrests are counted, according to our reporting, to include arrests where the FBI was present with another agency. The other agency made the arrest and led the investigation, but an FBI agent happened to be there, whether that was state and local police or other federal agencies, including those immigration raids that he's been requiring FBI agents to go on that many of them don't want to be doing. And so that artificially inflated the statistics. But what sources are telling us is that there's no larger number of fugitives or arrestees being taken off the street. It's just simply a numbers game. And so what Kash Patel was trying to argue there just wasn't factual, Chris.
Again, so I just want to make sure we're understanding this correctly. So if ICE is there, and if local police are there, and one person is arrested, that gets counted as 2?
That gets counted as an FBI arrest when it previously would not have been. And I've heard from veterans, maybe Jackie can speak to this. This is not a new idea. The FBI agents in the past have tried to play games with these stats and have sometimes counted arrests where it wasn't really their case. And sometimes supervisors had to come down on them and say, those aren't the stats. We're not counting those. But now we have a bureau-wide policy of counting all of those arrests, including immigration arrests. And that's what's inflating the stats, according to our sources.
So that does bring me, Jacqueline, to an obvious question. From your experience, have you ever seen anything of this magnitude, either with those arrest statistics or the FBI's most wanted list?
No, I have not. To first address the arrest statistics, in my 25 years serving in the FBI, I never saw that issue. In my personal experience, I never saw such inflation of arrests or any statistics when it comes down to it, because you may have targets, you may have numbers that you were aimed to reach, but if that becomes the sole purpose of arrests to get the highest number, that really lessens the impact. So again, as Ken's reporting says, if this is true, that they're counting arrests made by state and local law enforcement partners or other federal partners, those are not FBI arrests, and they're in fact being double or perhaps even counted, on a triple basis. For the most wanted list, that list has been in existence since 1950. J. Edgar Hoover instituted it for the purpose of catching bad guys at the time. A reporter wanted a list of bad guys. And the purpose throughout the years has been to put individuals on that list who, one, who pose a danger to the public, and two, whose capture would be assisted by the publicity of the list. So it varies. Sometimes arrests have been made quickly. The pace of the arrest has been, I would say, suspicious over the past year, and it's subjective, again, as Ken's reporting and Ken states. Those lists, anyone could be put on it, but I would hope that they're using that list in the correct way to really capitalize on the publicity and on the cooperation of the American public to help catch those violent criminals. And in no way are the questions that I and so many others have or in any way to, detract from the great work that the men and women of the FBI are doing.
Well, Jacqueline, I want to play now some of the questions that are being raised now by Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman.
The problem is that it's very hard then to figure out accurate statistics, to figure out and analyze, all right, what is actually going on? Where is crime going up? Where is it going down? Where should we be putting our resources? How should we be partnering better with other law enforcement agencies?
Does he raise some good questions? Are there dangers, Jacqueline, with manipulating numbers like this?
There are a lot of dangers and there are a lot of questions. I agree with his questions, and I have many more questions. To put out just numbers, it's hard to trust statistics. It's hard to trust, honestly, the people who are touting those statistics. So there are a lot of questions, and it comes down to what is the risk to the American public, to the mission of the FBI, by inflating those numbers, being so focused on the numbers. The FBI is 1/3 the size of the New York City Police Department. So we have to use our resources in a smart manner, in a efficient way. And we have to ask the question, are those limited resources really being used to get the biggest impact, utilizing and leveraging the skills and the experience and the capabilities of